before. Thank you for that. 3:59. I'll go ahead and call to order the FinCom meeting of January, the Finance Committee meeting of the Town of Nantucket on January 20th, 2022. And I am going to lead off, as always, with the script for remotely conducted open meetings. Members of public participation guidelines are that members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting must use their full name for Zoom access. If full names are not used, people will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. The town reserves the right to remove any member of the public from the meeting who doesn't use a full name or acts inappropriately. As a preliminary matter, this is Denise Cronow, Chair of the Town of Nantucket's Finance Committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative and in the order in which I see you. Joe Grouse.
Here.
Peter Schaefer.
Here.
Chris Glowacki.
Here.
Stephen Morey.
Here.
Jill Veith.
Here.
Thank you. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. And Maria, what's your
Here.
last? Basheva?
Yeah.
Okay, look at that. Thank you. Brian Turbot.
In attendance.
Thank you. Rick Sears.
Here.
Graham Durovich.
Here.
Thank you, Graham. Okay, anticipated speakers on the agenda, and I will, Bruce Mendel. Okay, he's waving here. Thank you. Dorothy Stover. That's okay, Dorothy. I see you're connecting to audio. Okay. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Finance Committee of the Town of Nantucket is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Finance Committee is convening by video conference via the Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website, unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. We have no changes to the agenda today. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude, I will ask the members to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your computer or phone when you're not speaking, and please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Okay, and last, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. I think that gets more interesting every time I read it. There you go. First item on the agenda, I call the meeting to order. I've announced that we're being audio and video recorded. May I please have a approval of the agenda?
Move approval of the agenda.
And a second then.
Second.
Thank you. By roll call, Joe.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Thank you. I will now open the meeting to public comment, and this is for any comments the public would like to make that is in addition to what is on our agenda for today. Being no hands raised, I will close the public comment. I am skipping over approval of meeting minutes from January 10th and 13th because I overlooked them in my emails and haven't read them yet. So apologies to the committee. We'll get them on our meeting on the 27th. And so
Denise, just an FYI, I looked for the minutes. I don't know, Maria, where they are, or, you know, in my town email, I couldn't find them. Maybe it was just me, but anyway.
I sent an email with the agenda
But maybe I can forward you in the future just Terry's email if it's easier for you guys to see it, because Denise didn't see it as well, Jill didn't see it as well, so they were in an email with the agenda that I can forward to you. I'll do it that right
Okay.
now.
Okay, thanks.
That would be great, Maria, because obviously, I wasn't able to find them. I mean, they were there. I just didn't click on them. So thank you.
Okay,
Making our life simpler. Very helpful. Okay, so first up today is Bruce Mandel to discuss Article D, and then we'll discuss Article E. Bruce, just so you're aware, we will not be making a recommendation or a motion today. As you know from town council, there are things that would have to be corrected for us to be able to make an appropriate motion, which we will do with town council on February 8th at the public hearing for warrant articles when he's participating. But I thought today would be a good opportunity for you to discuss both of your articles and to field any questions from the people in attendance. So I will turn the speaking platform over to you. Thank you, Bruce.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to preface the discussion of the two articles with a brief introduction. The purpose of the two articles that we're going to discuss is primarily to try to complete the roundout of Chapter 125A of our Code of the Town for single-use plastics. As was described or is described in the town's website for the frequently asked questions about this section of the code, where the question was presented, which asked in part, why are nip bottles and flushable wipes not included? Well, the town responded in the frequently asked questions response that, quote, initially the proposed ban was more comprehensive than what was voted on at the special town meeting. In the future, there is the possibility for adding additional items to the bylaw. Well, end quote. And recently we added flushable wipes to the bylaw for the benefit of the sewer facility. Both of these articles are aimed at reducing our waste stream, particularly non-recyclable, non-compostable waste. In keeping with, I guess what I understand is a policy direction from the select board to reduce the island's waste stream, as was discussed at the November 15th workshop called Solid Waste Management for Nantucket, which was, of course, about solid waste long-term planning and commitment to the future generations. My priority through all of these efforts with the single-use plastics issues has been to try to protect our aquifer, groundwater, and the environment. I believe it's a matter of our unwritten moral contract as a member of Nantucket's community. I believe the risks that we allow can be managed, and the passage of these two articles would help in that cause, and they'd also complete the intent of the process. We, all of us, as responsible individuals, can work together to protect the island's environment. There isn't a hint anywhere that help will come from somewhere else. We depend on ourselves. Nantucket's the only place about which I'm concerned. Now, I realize I've taken some heat on this because of some industry organizations, their lobbyists, no lawyers, powerful, sophisticated folks. Some may be concerned about making a profit out of the damage caused to our environment by certain products. I'm not here today to try to create a balance between profit potential for a few over the damage caused to our environment. Just for a second, recall what the asbestos industry was able to accomplish while they knew their products were killing people, mesothelioma cancer. The same goes for what the plastic industry has been able to accomplish for decades by concealing the evidence of PFAS contamination. It's affecting us right now, but we're left to deal with it by ourselves. And there are other industries that are currently concealing public health and safety issues. for their corporate interests. And it seems to me that since we're an island with a sole source aquifer, we don't have the luxury to make too many mistakes. I'm proposing these two articles because I believe we honor our future by protecting the present. Does anyone have any questions about what I just said? If not, I'll go into a discussion of Article D, if that's okay.
Please, Bruce. I don't see any hands raised, so go right ahead.
Thanks. I sent you an email to address why this article is important to reduce litter and the associated toxic elements flowing into our groundwater, aquifer, and beaches. Now I'm talking about Article D. There are 9 bullet points in the email, and I can review each of these bullet points quickly with you now.
Bruce, I did forward your email to the Finance Committee, so they do have it. So, you know,
I
well-
leave it up to you. I can review all 9 quickly, or I can move right along.
does anyone have any questions about the 9 points that Bruce raised? I mean, Bruce, if you'd highlight 2 or 3, I don't think we need to go through all 9.
Okay, well, obviously, these are some of the most littered items on the item. It's not about alcohol. It's not about drinking. It's not a prohibition. It doesn't ban the sale of any alcoholic products. There are alternatives available, and I'll show you them in a moment. And they're listed in the email. There are site-specific areas where the litter is more prevalent than other areas, and I've listed those in the email for you. And I know this from working with the clean team and picking these things up. Other towns have successfully banned these single-use plastic alcohol containers. And I gave you some examples. Chelsea, Falmouth, Wareham, Newton. I sent you a document. I produced very small, frequently asked questions that I've been asked about this. And I discussed those towns. Fair share revenue hasn't been affected. The Attorney General of the state has approved the ban of these items in the other towns. And of course, you guys always have questions about enforcement, which is going to be passive as set forth in the existing bylaw. Now, I attached some documents to you. I hope you got them. One was a copy of the letter from the Attorney General to Falmouth approving their ban, which was very helpful, by the way, to Chelsea in a lawsuit they have or had. And I sent you a copy of several frequently asked questions. So without getting long-winded as I can, I wanted to let you know that I'm ready to answer your question. The article is focusing on the small plastic containers, not the sturdier, more recyclable glass ones. Chelsea had a similar ban in 2018, and it was at the initiative of their council president because they had litter and public intoxication concerns. According to Commonwealth Magazine in 2019, in Chelsea, the nip litter has largely disappeared. Their alcohol-related ambulance responses have been reduced, and their public drunkenness has diminished. Falmouth's ban was enacted and is effective since 2021. Peter Hargrave, the proponent, reports he surveyed all 19 licensed establishments last month. All are complying. In a recent litter pickup, their version of our clean team noticed a significant reduction in nip litter. All 19 establishments, by the way, have reapplied for their 2022 licenses. None of them are going out of business. And I can get into my research on what these things cost and what the profits might be, but there are alternatives listed in my email. And of course, there's always the handy dandy pocket flask instead of the plastic container.
I think this must be a first for Finance Committee.
Are we allowed to have alcohol during finance committee meetings?
There's water in that, Joe, I'm sure.
I'm not passing it around, you know.
Bruce, can I, just a couple of quick questions. Do we have, or do you have any quantification? I know, and you talked about these nip bottles before, and that they compose a fairly significant chunk of the street side litter that the clean team picks up. Any way to quantify that other than a large component or a lot of?
Anecdotally, I can only tell you what Bill Connell and Adam Dredd have related, and that it's a nice chunk. In Falmouth, before the ban, they actually did a survey, and it represented 32% of the litter that their clean team, they don't call it that, picked up.
Okay.
I know from my experience, Joe, when I walk around Mattocket every other day, picking up litter along the bike path and the neighborhoods and whatnot, I guess over the summer, I probably pick up 1,000 of them.
And your comment about them having a deleterious effect on the aquifer is, these are generally PET plastic bottles, I think, right? And do they leach something into the ground, or is that sort of I guess I don't recall that, sort of polluting the aquifer or a PFAS-like issue was a problem with PET bottles before.
Oh, that's a good question. I believe that these bottles are not particularly biodegradable, nor they're obviously not recyclable. And they do break up into small pieces. And my understanding that these plastics are not particularly good for our groundwater, nor for our eventually the perched aquifer, particularly in Mattocket where it's so close to the surface.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, the only anecdotal information I have is from the data from Falmouth that I just repeated to you, and my conversations with the clean team and my own experiences.
Fair enough. Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Bruce.
Denise.
Thanks, Joe. Graham, I think you probably have some data on this your hand is up, so I'm turning the microphone to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Denise, and thank you all. In terms of nip bottles, this Warrant article really hits on a major litter issue that's a challenge. And at the Nantucket Litter Derby that we've had twice now, once it was canceled because of COVID, so we've only done it twice so far. This past year, we asked people to pull out nip bottles separately, just we saw such an abundance the first year. And not everyone did. People are going for the big quantity that they can get to win gold, win $1,000. But with what people did pull out over starts 8 a.m. Saturday morning, and they're due in at the landfill at noon on Sunday. There was over 200 pounds of nip bottles. So that's like roughly 4 of those trash can containers. So that's what we found at the litter derby event. So they are significant, especially when you think about how little they are. I'm not aware of specifically PFAS being in PET, added to PET, but with any plastics, they're perfect. They can soak up chemicals very well and transport chemicals, and they have, numerous challenges when they are in the natural environment, both to, the environment itself, animals, and human. It's a One Health issue across the board, as I'm sure you're aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Yeah, I remember the 200 pounds data point from last year's litter derby. I was just trying to figure out the math of how many thousands and thousands and thousands that would have had to be. So, Joanna?
I'm wondering about, I had heard at some point that the state was considering banning these nip bottles and making the minimum size larger in terms of alcohol sales. Does anybody know anything about that?
Joanna, I think I can discuss a little bit for that. There have been many efforts over the years to impose, for example, a deposit on these. And the incentive would have been like a soda can to return it and get your nickel. Well, the discussion has been going on for years, and it fails every year for several reasons. Some of the legislators don't think a nickel is enough. The mechanism for doing it is difficult. There's been some serious industry opposition to it, and there have been pledges from the industry to work hard to make it less litter prone and to work hard to clean up neighborhoods, none of which happened. And the latest effort in legislature just last year also failed. And it doesn't fail because it gets voted down. It gets failed because they don't bring it up. There have actually been House and Senate bill numbers assigned to some of these things. They just never make it to the floor. I don't know if that answers your question, Joanna, but that's as close as I can come.
Okay, I mean, I would like to share with the rest of the committee that when I did the coast to coast hike in October, there were two types of litter that I saw and and people that we were hiking with saw, and they were either cigarette butts or they were nip bottles. And they were most prevalent in the state forest. And it was not a small amount. And this is on the, the Land Bank and Conservation Commission's sponsored walk across the island. So 25 miles, the number one things that were in the woods were nip bottles and cigarette butts.
Thank you, Joanna. Any other questions for Bruce about Article D? Otherwise, we'll move on to E. Oh, Joe, go ahead.
Oh, you're muted, Joe.
You're muted, Joe.
Sorry, being a little bit lazy, Bruce. This is only plastic nip bottles, right? So if the liquor, the retail liquor industry switched and started selling glass nip bottles, are we going to be back here another year from now trying to ban, under 100 milliliter glass nip bottles as a trash issue? And if so, why aren't we just banning them glass or plastic?
Well, Joe, good question. I focused on the plastic ones because I'm dealing with the single-use plastic bylaw. I would be very happy to see someone come back for glass nip bottles. I'm 75 years old. I have incurable cancer. I spend half my time dealing with chemo. And I think I'm getting too old for how complicated it is to put forward a citizen's article with enough documentation to please the finance committee. So I would say that if the need arose and someone was to motivate me, I would, but I don't think it would be associated with this particular section of our code.
Yeah, Bruce,
Fair enough, and I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Yeah, Joe, town council isn't here, but I'm pretty sure under the plastics ban, it would be difficult to add in glass.
Yeah.
So,
I was just struck really from Joanna's story that,
yeah,
this is sort of, I understand that it's tied to the single-use plastics ban, but they're going to be glass nip bottles if the industry switches to glass nip bottles all through the state forest. So anyway, but
It was all fireball. by the way.
one step at a time. So
Jill, and then Peter, I'll call on you next. Jill, please.
I think, Joe, I just want to respond to Joe. If I recall from last year's debate, I think there are glass bottles, but they're bigger, Joe. They don't make them in that size. So the next size up, I think, if I recall correctly from last year, is 3 times as big. So I think that's the issue. Don't think they do make glass in that size. I think we talked about that.
Joe, I actually do make, some brands do bend in glass, which I pick up, and I'm pleased to say the glass is much sturdier and doesn't break. But you're right. The larger sizes, 200 milliliters, 187 milliliters, the ones I listed to you, they come in both plastic and glass, depending obviously on the value of these things. For example, a nip bottle of Glenlivet 12-year-old is going to come in glass. A 59-cent nip bottle of, vodka may come in plastic, but my intent is to focus on the small size plastic. And last time we discussed this, I was shooting for up to 200 milliliters, and people felt that was too limiting. So this time I approached it the same way the other towns did, 100 milliliters or less. And the prime suspect in that size range is the 50 milliliter bottle, which is about a little more than 2 tablespoons. Maybe it's a little more than that. Somebody could do the math.
No, 30 milliliters are in a tablespoon. Anyway, Peter.
Yeah, hi, Bruce. First, do you know what percentage of the bottles are plastic against glass with a nip bottle?
No, I don't. Again, relying on my friends in Falmouth and Chelsea, I would say, as Jill mentioned, that a substantial amount of the nips in that small size are probably plastic. I don't have an exact number. I could research that for you before your February 8th meeting, and if I find something, if you want, I could send it to you.
Let me ask you another question. You say that you have alternatives. If I ran a liquor store and I wanted an alternative, can I buy the nip in glass as well as in plastic?
It depends what you want to drink. I think if you're looking, for example, for a nip bottle of Maker's Mark, which happens to be my preference, you're going to get glass. There's no plastic version of that. So it's an interesting question, but I'm not aware of the distributors having both a plastic and a glass small size container for the same brand of liquor.
Okay, so we really don't know what effect this will have on sales. Have you heard from any of the liquor stores complaining about this article?
Not yet, but I'm sure I will.
Okay. Well, thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Peter. Okay. Any other questions or comments from anyone else?
I will tell you a little bit to answer your question, Peter. I did some research with several of my off-island package store friends where I'm familiar with the owners. The 50 milliliters cost them anywhere from 49 cents, depending on the level of quality, all the way up to the range of about $5 for a top shelf brand like the Glenlivet 12-year-old I mentioned to you. On the mainland, these package stores sell these for between 99 cents up to $6 for a 50 milliliter nip. Some top shelf containers, however, have to be purchased in bulk by these stores. But most of them are sold in small packages of 8 to 10 to 12 bottles. I don't know if that helps you, but most of these stores, these nips, despite proclamations to the contrary, are a very small portion of their inventory. If you go into any of the package stores on Nantucket, perhaps except the one on Old South Road, you will see a very small amount of shelf space dedicated to them compared to the other things that they sell. Obviously, if you buy something for 49 cents and you're selling it for $1 or $2, it's a pretty nice markup. But as a percentage of their profits, I haven't seen any package store come forward with documentation to show us that information. And I'd like to see it if they want to make a complaint that we're killing them.
Thank you. Bruce, now I'm going to encourage you to move on to E.
Thank you very much. Article E, There's a growing awareness of the environmental effects of discarded plastic acetate cigarette filters. These are one of the most commonly littered items on Nantucket, and actually everywhere. We find hundreds of them each weekend during the clean team. I find them a lot at NERDA bus stops in Mattocket. And I've even requested cigarette kiosks be placed at the bus stops, but NERDA declines. Now, I sent you out an email with 10 bullet points, and in which there are footnoted references to 2 World Health Organization studies and reports. There are also at the bottom of the email 2 additional documented reference notes showing the information about the chemicals that are added to these filters to give them the illusion of filtration. That chemical, invented by R.J. Reynolds back in the 50s, turns the white plastic filter brown when it's exposed to smoke. That chemical also leaches into our groundwater. I'll show you this in a moment. And as with the previous article, if you like, I can stop here and review those 10 bullet points. I don't think it's necessary if all of you have received it and read it.
I think I forward everything you send me, Bruce, and I know that it's also, I'm very good at Postman Pat. And I know also Maria attaches it to, it's also on the town website. So I'll look for a show of hands from the Finance Committee if you want Bruce to elaborate on the 10 bullet points, or we'll just go straight to questions.
Wait, I have a little more comments before questions.
Okay, you can have some more comments, but I'm just trying to manage.
Yes,
the
thank you.
Okay, so no need to elaborate on the 10 bullet points, Bruce, and
I will
continue
continue
with your
briefly.
commentary.
You know, in San Francisco, pharmacies are prohibited from selling these filtered cigarettes. CVS Pharmacies, which is a nationwide chain, no longer dispenses them. And Target stores, I know we don't have one on there, but no longer dispenses them. There are almost 80 harmful chemicals in discarded plastic acetate filters. The Federal Register listed them in 2011. I've got a 4-page document here, and I'll send it to you in an email attachment if you're interested. Nevertheless, these chemicals leach out of discarded filters into our groundwater. I provided a document to you from the University of Bath. Now that's in Europe. And in Europe, they're banning cigarettes and all kinds of plastics and things like this. But this is entitled Tobacco Tactics. And I suggest that you at least read the key points on the first page and the top of the second point. And also on the 12th page, there's a section, environmental impact. Even just the several bullet points in that section of the document would be interesting to you. I also provided you with a brief article from the Plastic Health Coalition, which is called The Dirty Truth About Cigarette Filters. I hope you get a chance to read it. It's really only 1 page, but it hits the point. I provided 2 documents to you from the NIH, the National Institute of Health, in support of this article. One is an abstract of a very lengthy article addressing the need for environmental policy on hazardous cigarette waste. The second is a lengthier NIH article about the toxicity of cigarette butts and their chemical components to marine and freshwater fish. Now, they use those fish in their experiments because they couldn't get any human volunteers, I imagine. But it's sort of a canary in the cage scenario. These freshwater and marine fish did not fare well. And I want to take a moment to share with you exactly what the article is concerned. Marlboro cigarette, and you see the filter at the end. Let me show you a bigger picture here. I'm sure you get the point. You've all seen these. And I'm going to read you a brief quote from a research paper by the researchers from the New York State Department of Health, the Roswell Park Center for Cancer, and Cornell University. And I can provide you with the full document. Just let me know, I'll send it to you. But this little brief paragraph, I think, is important. When we view the face of a cigarette filter with the naked eye, and we compress it, kind of squeeze it, you know, the filter column, it kind of makes us feel like the filter is made of a sponge-like material. However, when we open the cigarette, the filter, by cutting it lengthwise with a razor, it reveals that it consists of fibrous, let me get the find it there, of fibrous materials. Spreading these apart, as I have done here, can you see those? You will find, according to this research, there are 12,000 white fibers here. Microscopically, these fibers are Y-shaped and contain titanium dioxide, a toxic chemical. The fibers are made of this plastic cellulose, a synthetic plastic-like substance. We used to find it in photographic film when we didn't have digital cameras. A plasticizer, glycerol triacetate, is applied to bond these fibers into this. When we cut apart that filter, after it's been exposed to the chemical that makes it turn brown, that brown substance you see there is the result of the chemical that's in them that turns brown when it's exposed to smoke. And when we slice that filter open, this is what it looks like. Of course, there are examples, alternatives to plastic acetate filters. The tobacco industry knows about all of them. And in some cases, they've actually bought the patents to them to try to control their use. Alternatives are available. This is a silica gel-based filter, and it reduces the amount of toxic products ingested by the smoker by at least a third without changing the taste. The gel is what absorbs the nicotine and tar, and you can see it's in a holder, kind of like they used back in the 30s and 40s in those movies. There are cardboard filters. These are biodegradable. They only take 28 days to decompose in nature. These natural filters are just as effective in filtering out the hazardous substances. They're made of organic hemp, unbleached paper, untreated cotton. And as you will read in the document I gave you, filters really don't do anything. The last one I'll show you is a crappy picture. I don't know if you can see it. There it is. These are reusable cigarette filters. They've got a little cartridge in there. And the filters reduce the amount of nicotine inhaled in the tar compared to the plastic acetate filters. Now, you don't see these in the stores because there's no demand for them. Just like there was no demand for the water in a box and the water in an aluminum can. So, of course, there are filterless cigarettes. And there are other alternatives. I've got friends on Nantucket that roll their own cigarettes. They put their own filters in them. When I was in the Army, we were taught to field strip these things so that they didn't become litter. And of course, so the bad guys didn't find us. So there are ways to deal with this. And I would hope that we could address this in a meaningful manner. So this is why I lost a picture. Hold on. Let me get back. There I am. And of course, there are e-cigarettes. So there are alternatives. I have to tell you, I was a lifelong smoker of cigarettes. I stopped some years ago. Hasn't helped too much. I have an occasional cigar. I enjoy smoking. My objective here is to protect Nantucket's environment, groundwater, and aquifer. And people have said to me, "Oh, what good does one cigarette filter do?" We heard the same thing about, "Oh, what good is one straw? What good is one plastic container?" Same thing here. It's a cumulative effect. There are thousands of these picked up every week, and I would hope that you would find a way to look at this favorably. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Questions for Bruce? Peter? You're muted, Peter.
Yeah,
Thank
got
you.
it. Bruce, if the paper, first off, are you saying that the plastic filter, when it turns brown from the chemical, it's turning brown from the chemical, not from the smoke?
That's right.
So there's no, if they didn't have the chemical in there, it would stay white the whole time.
That's right. And well, it would discolor, but it wouldn't turn so violently brown. If you're a smoker, or if you know a smoker, the next time they light up, ask them to take a tissue and hold it at the end of the filter while they inhale a couple of times, and then look at the tissue.
Oh, I luckily don't have any friends who smoke anymore, so I can't do that. But let me ask you this question. I would assume that a paper filter is cheaper than a plastic filter for the cigarette manufacturers.
What do you mean by a paper filter?
You're saying that there's biodegradable filters that they could put on the cigarettes
Oh,
rather
yeah.
than.
They are less expensive when produced in volume.
I understand that, but why wouldn't
produced in volume?
the cigarette companies automatically put them on instead of the plastic, which costs more?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I assume it has something to do with the way they've always marketed cigarettes. When you were growing up, do you remember Kent cigarettes with the micronite filter?
I do.
Those filters were made out of asbestos. So, as with anything else, science advances, people adapt, marketing changes. As you know, the cigarette companies are very restricted now in how they advertise in the United States, but they advertise like crazy overseas. I think the answer to your question is probably profitability.
It doesn't affect the flavor of the cigarette to the smoker.
No.
Okay,
It does
thank
not.
you.
According
Any
to
other-
the inventor of those things, it does not. I have never tried them because they're not readily available to me, and I'm not interested in smoking anymore.
Any other questions about this? No? Okay, Bruce, thank you very much. We
I
will
think there's
be,
a hand raised. I see Mr. Turcotte's
Oh,
got his hand
okay,
up.
I'm sorry. I didn't see you. RJ, you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Chair Chrono. Can you hear me? So RJ Turcott on behalf of the Nantucket Land Council, we'd just like to comment in support of Bruce's two warrant articles here. These are essentially, as far as microplastics are concerned, kind of a slam dunk. These are ones that there are existing alternatives to. My grandfather's been saying for years that everyone should roll their own cigarettes anyways. And there's also glass bottles regularly available. They're not necessarily the alcohol industry standard, but I can tell you we use glass, small 50 milliliter bottles pretty regularly for water quality samples here that we ship off the island. And a footnote in, I believe, Bruce's documentation for Article D, he refers to the Ocean Conservancy, oceanconservancy.org. if you guys are interested in some more hard numbers on cigarettes and plastic bottles, that website has a really nice synopsis for each year they've been doing it. And every single year, cigarette butts are #1 every single year. And #2 is plastic bottles. They don't break it down. So we don't really know what percentage of the plastic bottles are in fact nip bottles, but plastic bottles are almost always #2. Not as consistently as cigarette butts are #1, but these are items that once they're in the hands of customers who have purchased them, it's really, really hard to regulate and keep people from flicking them out the windows of their cars. So this is something where this can be regulated at the source. Other communities have done it already. As Graham and Bruce alluded to, these filters are really fine fibers already. They're almost microplastics already, and they break down even more quickly. They get down and they are really good at carrying carcinogenic chemicals, and they do get down into the water. There's been studies both on Nantucket and elsewhere where we found microplastics in the tissues of bivalves and fish and on the eelgrass blades themselves. And so this is a pretty prevalent issue that's been going on for a long time. And we don't believe that we're taking anything away from the community. They'll still be able to smoke. They'll still be able to drink. It'll just require a change in how things operate from the status quo. So we are very much so in support of this. And thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you, RJ. Thanks a lot. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bruce. All right, I will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is discussion of citizen warrant articles. If there's anyone on the call that wants to discuss another one, otherwise I will move on to item number 9. I don't see any hands raised about discussion. Oh, Chris?
Can I ask a question about other articles? And well, we still have someone from the Land Council on. When we were discussing the fertilizer article, there was mention of a Land Council study that could source the within the vegetation, and she had said that she would provide that. I don't think that's among the ones we've been provided, unless that. But there is one that was provided by someone else that does have the Land Council stamp on it, the 2017 pond study. I just wasn't clear if that's the one Emily was referring to when she spoke, or if there's something else the Land Council has that would be helpful.
RJ, please. Yes,
Okay,
please,
thank
RJ.
you. So I actually didn't see the meeting Emily was at, but I think you are referring to our health assessment for Nantucket Mackin Harbors, and that was an isotope analysis of the eelgrass tissues, and we can tell based on that where the nitrogen came from, whether it was a natural animal source or whether it's fertilizer, and we can definitely get that to you. If it hasn't gotten to you already, who should I send that to?
If you send it to me, please, RJ.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. And then I'll forward it to the Finance Committee, and then we'll put it in our packet. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. In respect of that, to the Finance Committee, when do you want to rediscuss Article F? Assuming that we get all the information in the next week or so, because I want to put it back on the schedule and then have all the people who I invited the first time re-invite them for the second time, to make sure that they're available during our deliberations to answer any questions. So hang on a second, and I will give you dates that we have options to discuss this. Oh, I too have paper. There we go. Bruce, you're not the only one with show and tell. Okay, we could discuss it on February 3rd. We could discuss it on February 10th, February 17th. Jill?
I'm prepared to vote on that the earliest date you want to. I just wanted to ask if we had gotten any feedback or if anybody could share with us how this affects the golf courses. And I didn't know if we had a way of getting information on that.
Okay, thank you. That's a good follow-up point. Can I propose right now for February 10th for Article F? Is that everybody can be prepared by then, and we'll try to find the golf course people. and ask them their thought to come to that meeting. Okay, thank you. All right, Maria, you've got that, right? F, February 10th. Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. Now it is reconsideration of recommendation on citizen warrant article L, equality for all genders on all island beaches. And I think Dorothy is going to be happily joining all of our meetings going forward. So, right, Dorothy, thank you for being here again. Jill, I think it's over to you to make a motion.
Yeah, so I think I wanted to make a motion to open this up for reconsideration.
I'll
Is there a
second for
second?
discussion. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, so, and Libby, I'm going to count on you to keep me on track here in terms of and procedure. So I think that's a roll call vote on that motion, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so I start with Joe,
No,
Peter,
No,
Stephen,
No.
Joanna,
No.
Chris,
Hi.
Jill,
Aye.
Denise, no, the noes have it. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Dorothy. The motion stands as motion to adopt.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And please come to all of our meetings. Thank you.
It was really wonderful to hear everything that I could from before. So thank you for making this public.
Oh, of course, of course. Thank you. Okay, now on to other committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? And I see no committee reports. Okay, so on other business, as you know, January 29th, we are doing our budget review as we normally do on the Saturday. And I am actually just going to read out the categories and look for hands raised to see who would like to be one of two people to be the lead on that budget discussion. So police, harbor master, and emergency preparedness. Chris, thank you. Who's gonna team with Chris on that one?
Well,
Joanna, thank you. Fire. I'll raise for fire. Who's going to join me for fire? Peter, oh, sorry, Peter beat you to the post here, Joe.
okay.
Yeah, sorry. Water. Jill, you know more about water than most people. Joe? Jill, do you
Fine,
want
I'll
to do
that.
water?
I'll do water.
Yeah, because you were so prepared for joining the water department last year, so I'm going to your strength here, Jill. Okay, airport.
Sure. Do airport.
Stephen, okay. And George, that's what he gets for missing the meeting. I'm assigning George to that.
Hey, it's
Okay.
not a punishment. That's a great assignment. That's it.
I
Everybody
am, I
wanted
know,
airport.
I know, it's a treat. Okay, speaking of treats, sewer.
I'll do sewer.
Joe and
Yep.
Jill, okay?
Yep.
Oh, Joe and Jill are tag teaming. Break, I think we'll all do break. General fund, we all do general fund. DPW, I'll sign up for Chris and I for DPW. Thank you. Solid waste,
we'll do it.
Joanna, thank you. And I think I'm helping George with you on that one. Our Island Home, I'll sign up for that one. And who else wants to be on Our Island Home? Joe, thank you. And that's it. That's all we have to assign. The rest is our general, it's appropriations. So it's appropriations, and then the general fund, we always all do the general fund to begin with. Okay,
Great.
the date, thank you all for that. The date of our next meeting is a week from today. Oh, Jill, go ahead. Sorry,
No, I just want to make a comment when you allow me to make a comment.
please.
I mean, I'm kind of disappointed. I'm fine with you all voting the way you did. I was interested in changing my vote on that article, which is why I wanted to do that, because I think it's a family-friendly island. And for us to look like we're endorsing toplessness, I was personally uncomfortable with. So that's what I was trying to do when y'all wanted to shut me down for, trying to reopen this discussion. So I just wanted to make it clear what I was trying to do personally.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. And that will be reflected in the minutes. Thank you very much. Okay. The date of our next meeting is a week from today, January 27th at 4 o'clock, as usual. Folks, just to kind of give you a heads up on what's coming. So we will have, on the 27th, we will have the Coastal Resiliency Committee's presentation, the report. His name is just going right out of my head, and Joanna will shout it out for me.
Vince?
Vince Murphy?
Thank you, Vince Murphy. Thank you. Vince Murphy will come and do a presentation, and then we'll have questions and answers. I thought it was appropriate for us to hear about this prior to looking at the budget reviews on the Saturday. On the 8th, with the public hearing, we actually have 6 articles that have some legal, I don't want to say defects, but have some legal issues. And so all of those articles will be under discussion and hopefully motioned or recommended, or make our recommendations on that day with town council presenting. On the 14th, we will look at the real estate articles. Ken Bogrant will be joining us. And on the 15th, we'll be looking at the planning board meeting recommendations to all of the articles. In the planning board, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 citizen warrant articles in addition to the planning board's articles of their own. The planning board, I checked the schedule. They will actually be reviewing these articles on January 31st and on February 7th, both at 4 o'clock on YouTube. So in case anybody wants to watch their discussions of these articles. And yeah, that's just kind of give you a heads up about what's coming. And we have to have our final recommendations done by March 7th and March 8th. But I think we're in pretty good shape to be done hopefully on February 24th. So let's see if we can, yes, Joanna.
I just have 2 questions, Denise. One of them is about the contract review committee. So there's a couple of things that I noticed that I think might be, this is a process question. A couple of things I noticed might be worth sharing with the committee. And I didn't know if there would be, like, how do you want to handle that? I don't know if we would invite like the specific agency people to come in and talk about it. Or if it's just Dorothy, or if I should ask Dorothy how she wants to do this, right? Because one of them is the request from the hospital about the money for the ambulance to take people off island. I thought that was particularly notable this year because the increase is significant. And then also the food bank.
Okay. So typically Dorothy comes and presents, as you know, Joanna. Let's you and I discuss it offline, and then we'll figure out which way to go forward with that. So.
And then I had a follow-up question also just about, this is related to the fertilizer ban, but it also has to do with John Giorgio coming to our meeting. I have some questions about the fertilizer ban and the home rule petition.
Okay,
right?
And that'll, yep. So we can include, yes, we can include F. And so any questions that we have about any of the articles that we need town council input on, we can discuss at the public hearing on February 8th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Peter?
you.
Thank you,
Just
Joanna.
this might be particular to me, but I wonder, Maria, could you, when you send out memos, the first thing you put on it is the date of the meeting you're referring to? Because when I open up my index to see what I've got in mail, I have to open up every single one of the mails each mail piece that I get. I have to open up individually to know what it's referring to. I don't know if it's just because I have an iPad or whatever, but.
Peter, are you talking about the invitations from Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because Zoom named them. I'll see if I can go manually add the date as well. So that's why they're all called Finance Committee, and it doesn't have the date. But I see what you're saying because you don't have Outlook probably.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. Okay, sounds good. And Bruce, I'm glad that town council Bruce sent me a note saying that town council has already approved the new wording that we would be making the motion on. So that'll be helpful to have in advance of February 8th. So thank you, Bruce. So, okay, everyone, anything else under other business? With no hands raised, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And second, thank you. Roll call, Joe.
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill.
Aye.
Thank you. Denise, aye. Thanks, everybody, as always. Thank you very much, and see you in Bruce. Thank you very much. And Maria, Brian, Libby, as always, thank you very much.
Bye.
See you in a week, folks.